Ms. Daniel, whenever you're ready to start, the recording is in process and the meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. Ms. Daniel, you're muted right now.
I didn't realize I was muted. Thank you. I was going on and on. Nora Daniel, I'm acting for Sharon Wedderburn while she's away. It's good to see everybody who I can see. Education Committee of the Community Board 8. I will just kick it off by giving an update from our last meeting in a little bit. So we, Chair Tyus, as we know, obviously the pandemic is going on and a lot of kids are doing remote learning, but we know that there's been an issue with internet access, particularly within NYCHA developments. And so Chair Tyus wrote to some elected officials as well as to NYCHA and to a couple of providers recommending that they get together to figure out how to provide universal internet access at NYCHA houses, in particular for kids who are remote learning there. So that is one update that's happened recently. And as we know, as we've all seen, the mayor announced that elementary school kids will be going back to in-person learning on December 7th. So I wanted to find out if the rest of the group has any additional updates. You're muted. You're muted.
Was there a question?
No. I thought you were speaking. I saw your mouth moving. I thought you were. I asked if anybody had any updates from.
Sorry.
I saw your lips moving, so I thought you were trying to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Marva. Who was speaking? Okay, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. No. So while we wait for Marva to figure out the audio situation, I know she's trying to say something. Does anybody else have any updates or anything they'd like to share with the group or to discuss?
Well, yes, this is Miss Kenzie. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, thank you. I miss seeing you guys in person. Oh,
I know.
I know. My thing with the school is it's like a big divide. You have half of the parents who want the school open, and the other half still want the schools closed. So, and then there's also the issue of there's a lot of students at home that don't have the needed computers or what have you to even complete the work that's been given to them remotely. So I'm hoping on this platform or this meeting that those topics will be addressed and that we come up with some sort of solutions. But I mean, with COVID supposedly on the rise again, how long will schools be open if they do reopen?
I mean, that is definitely true. I've noticed as well, do have, it's a tough thing because, they had these guidelines at first, and now the guidelines are completely different and they've completely changed it, and they're now going to be learning, the kids who have already signed up will now be learning in person, but then the kids who didn't sign up before won't be learning in person. So, I mean, it is a big divide. And so I think it is worth us talking about what we see as the major issue, as opposed to, I mean, in particular, kids not being able to get the kind of education that they need because of everything that's going on. So what kind of, do you have suggestions, thoughts?
Well, being that we have this committee, or is our focus supposed to really be on the students within the confines of Community Board 8 and seeing that they are receiving the much needed tools that they need at home?
I think that's a good place to start. I think it would be worth us trying to reach out to, I was thinking that maybe we could attend some of our local CC meetings and see what they're talking about and see what it seems like the students within the confines of Community Board 8 need, and go from there in terms of figuring out how we might be helpful.
Because I'm
Do
thinking
you personally
a
attend?
lot of the students, a lot of the
Sharon, go ahead.
students that a lot of students that don't have the computers or not able to access the classroom platform, I had suggested on one of the local meetings that you just mentioned that what happened to sending home the homework packets that they used to send home over the summer. So, especially some of the students may live with caregivers or older adults, especially the younger children, and they may not be internet savvy. It seems to me that there wasn't an option in terms of how the students would be learning, especially for the younger children that have older caregivers or what have you. There's always pen and paper. So now instead of students sitting home for weeks and months with a gadget that don't work or with a gadget not having a gadget at all, why wasn't work assignments or classwork assignments sent home that they could have returned on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, maybe email them somewhere or either mail it back to the teacher. I understand that students need interaction, but unfortunately they can't interact with each other right now in person, and then even on a computer. If they don't have a computer, what are they going to do? They still have to learn. But I don't hear enough talk about sending home the assignments via paper. It's not an excuse if you don't have a computer or a gadget, that now you're just sitting there.
That could be something we could ask about and bring up. In particular, if, I don't know, my assumption would be that if they're not doing this, it's probably because there's like a logistical issue with it. But if we're able to talk to them and see if we might be able to help them with some type of solution. I know that they were doing meals at school, so maybe that might be a point where kids might be able to get enrichment work that they can, or even assignments that they can turn back in.
I mean, yeah, that's what they don't have any problems over the summer. I mean, my child has graduated college. I don't really have any kids in school right now, but throughout all of his years, they made sure that they sent home enough work to keep them busy over the summer. And prior to COVID, children were still over the winter recess or the holiday breaks, or in the summer recess, they would get packets, assignment packets sent home. But now everything is swirling around this computer or the virtual the learning. but it has to be some substitute if the device isn't working.
I was
I
just
mean,
going to say that, am I echoing badly or something?
That's okay.
Okay, I was just going to say that, I mean, I have a child that goes to New Bridges, and for like the last 3 days that they were in school, he was carrying home every single book, all of his packets, and like kind of just waiting until they officially closed the school. So he was coming home with a book bag full of stuff, not even a device. And then he left his math book. So the first day they were back to remote learning, we had to run to the school, get the math book, and there were people, teachers at the school waiting to hand out devices to people who didn't have devices at home. So like I know he does have paper packets and things like that. One thing that I heard at the CEC meeting for 17 was that parents, even if they don't feel safe with their kids going into the school, they want to make sure that the kids are involved in the school activities. I think that's always more the concern. Like, I'm choosing not to send my kid to in-person school, but I still want him to feel like he's part of the school community. And so how do they make that happen? And that's like, providing times for school pictures. Even though they're not physically in the classroom, they can come to the school at a set time to take pictures with the other remote learners. There was like a Latino Heritage Month event where everyone was invited, remote learners and in-person students and things like that. So, and prior to the holiday, there was questions about, can we still do food drives? Can we still do warm coat exchanges, and things like that? So the community does want to still have the schools as an access point for needs to be met within the community. And I know, Nora, you were saying like the meals, they're still giving out the meals. Like there was a turkey lunch that was given out at the school prior to Thanksgiving. But for myself, and just feeling like, how can we make sure the kids are safe and healthy? I do like that they're saying they're going to be doing more COVID testing in the school, because that was always the argument. In the city itself was above 3% for infection rates. So they made the decision to close the schools, but infection rates within the schools themselves were very, very low in comparison. And so I think the idea that, they're going to bring the kids back next week and just test more often in the schools, the teachers and the students, should hopefully add some level of comfort to families.
What about, because I know that previously the mayor had said that if parents had not already opted into in-person learning, that they would not be able to do so now. It seems like, given the new safety measures and all the things that they're trying to do, if parents would like to opt for in-person learning, it seems like they should still be able to do so.
I mean, the issue of the window for when you could ask for in-person learning and whether it was going to be extended is a good question. I mean, but it just seems to me that people who didn't want their kids in school, they probably haven't changed their mind at this point, right? I mean, if anything, the numbers going up across the city mean that they probably don't want their kids in school.
I mean, that may be true. It's just, I did read somewhere that some parents wanted him to expand the window, or to offer the window up again.
Right.
So, I mean, we have more information now about, the numbers are going up around the city, but we do have more information now about how it's going in schools. Since the infection rate is so low, some people might have changed but people may not have. May be right.
Right. I mean, and then one thing that I don't think they talk about enough are these learning bridges sites, which I didn't know about, but it's like in the neighborhood community centers and stuff. And like, if you're a working parent and you need a place for your child to go if school's not open, this is available, where they're not in a school, but it's providing a safe space for your child to go and do remote learning. And I feel like that wasn't advertised enough, because it could be an option for working families, or even if, grandma's at home, doesn't know how to work an iPad, maybe you could send the child to this Learning Bridges site, which, um, supposedly is allowed to have social distancing. Everyone keeps their masks on. The kids are getting meals, and hopefully, again, not bringing something home to grandma just because she can't work the iPad.
Right.
So I
And
feel like they didn't advertise those Learning Bridges sites enough.
right. So that's when when they went all remote, they would have the Learning Bridges sites open for people, like the kids of essential workers, basically, right?
Not even all remote. It was open, I think, even when the
Even
school opened. Yeah.
okay.
Because I was referred, because I was asking about after school, and this was an issue. There was, if your school doesn't have DOE employees doing after school, they were not allowed to have after school programs run by outside organizations and things like that, limiting the number of people the kids are exposed to and limiting the number of people in the schools. And so they said, oh, do the Learning Bridges site. And I was like, well, that doesn't really help because he's going to school anyway. It's just, being forced to pick him up by 2:30. That was our issue. Um, just the fact that after school was not available. But the Learning Bridges sites were operating while the kids were in person.
Okay. Any other issues that we've noticed with in-person learning or with the remote learning, anything at all? Any other concerns that we have?
Well, there's a lot of talk about the homeschool. So a lot of those parents who don't send their back into the classroom setting, they're opting for homeschooling. I'm not really sure where the city stands on that. Well, if these parents do, in fact, really begin to do the homeschooling, is this something where they would get paid, or is there any kind of incentive on homeschooling the children?
I am not sure about that. I don't know anything about homeschooling at all. Um, we would hope not too many people want to pull out of the system, but they might, given how crazy things are. Um, but I'm not aware of any incentives or anything like that around, or any subsidies around homeschooling.
Right, right. Henry, what about you? Have you heard any kind of incentives involving the homeschooling, or have you heard anything about that being an option?
I never even heard of it. Anyone speaking about withdrawing. You mean like withdrawing your kids from DOE altogether and just
Yeah,
creating your own curriculum, or doing like one of these online curriculums for homeschool? No, I've never even heard of that in New York City.
yeah. That's what a lot of parents are opting for because it's too much back and forth, and then we don't even know where we stand with COVID. It's here this month. It's going next, so you don't know.
That's true. I mean, there is a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I see her talking, hearing things.
I
Seems
don't
like
know if
she's
she's trying
talking.
to us.
Oh, I was asking my husband because he has a lot of people in education that he knows and stuff like that. And so I was asking him, he said, yeah, he's heard of people homeschooling their kids during the pandemic. And I'm like, oh, that's news to me.
Yeah. So I'm like wondering. Um, Board 8, the children within the confines, the schools within the confines of Board 8. Um, what can we offer, or if parents are reaching out to the board, what type of solutions, or what are we offering to them with their complaints?
So the one thing I thought that we might be able to do, there's a couple of things I thought we might be able to do. We might, if we get a little more information about the things that we have questions about, it might make sense to figure out what problems that, you know, that the parents themselves are seeing or the problems that our CCs are seeing, and see how if we either might be another voice in the room to sort of push whatever they need along, or if there's something that they physically need that we might be able to help with, like volunteering or anything like that. So those are my two thoughts, either through advocacy or through volunteering. Those are my thoughts of how we might be able to help. What are your thoughts? Oh, we were helpfully sent by, not sure who from ZBH sent it. It was Julia. Did you send it? She sent us in the chat.
Yes, I did.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's very helpful. Yeah, that's very helpful. So that is one of the ways that we could help. At least we have the information about homeschooling. Maybe it's something that could go out in a newsletter. I'm not sure, but that is one of the ways, for those parents who are in fear of sending their children back.
Homeschooling is highly regulated in New York State. New York State has one of the most strictest and stringent homeschooling laws. Students that are homeschooled in New York State do have to still pass, state certification exams, math and English. It does not change.
I mean, it seems like I don't know, like, Julie said, I don't know a lot about, she's giving us really good information here, but it seems like it might be more helpful for us to try to make it easier for people to use the actual remote learning that they're providing, because either way, it seems like the issues would remain. Like if you're having a hard time doing remote learning, it doesn't seem like homeschooling would necessarily be easier if we're talking about the same problems that we're talking about here. But what are your thoughts?
I would just think, like, if you're going to have a child at home with someone who may not be internet savvy. From my understanding of homeschooling, because I had a cousin when she was like in Ohio, she was homeschooled her son, but it was like all internet based learning as well. So I don't know that that would really solve the problem of people who need homeschool or would think homeschooling would be a better option for them. And then, as Julia said, like still meeting the benchmarks that are required and things like that. Because in New York, like you mess around and don't send your kids to school, you'll have an ACS knocking at your door and stuff. And just like even I remember it was an issue like, registering how many hours your child is learning and making sure all the documents are filed, because the state is still keeping track of the child and making sure that they're learning. So I don't know. And there was an email that was just sent out, right, saying that there's going to be enrichment classes offered to families now. That was sent out to the community board. There's a meeting that we're supposed to, I don't know, Nora, are you going to this meeting? I know I registered for the meeting. I think it's next week. One of the education committee council meetings to see more what the needs are, because even just sitting at the CEC 17 meeting, I really didn't hear people complaining so much about the school. Honestly, I didn't. As far as like I feel like in these meetings a lot of times it's school officials and not necessarily parents who are coming to these meetings. Like it's principals, like we're safe, we're ready, this is how we prepared for remote learning, this is how we prepared for in-person learning. But from my recollection, other than like, how can my child stay a part of the community? How are we going to do a coat drive? How are we going to do a food drive? I don't necessarily hear complaints about the learning. Either you want your kid in school and the school closed, or you don't want your kid in school and you want like a good home learning environment. But lack of devices, I don't know, or lack of ability to use a device, I don't know that I've heard complaints about that. But
I mean,
maybe I'm just not
probably,
talking to the right people.
well, I mean, I think that people who are probably having issues with connectivity are probably not attending CC meetings. They tend to be attended by people who like have more ability to sort of like get connected to the things that they need, in my experience anyway. Um, but it's still, but folks who are parents there may have some information that they've heard around about people who had issues with getting connected to internet or with devices. I mean, we see in the newspaper, we read in the newspaper, people are having issues with obtaining the devices, particularly when DOE was then reporting parents to the state register to report to ACS about not participating in remote learning when they had a device that didn't even work or didn't have a device at all. So we do know that that is how, we've heard that through, like legal aid and stuff like that, the people who defend parents and kind of issues. So they do have some sort of insight as to parents who need things. So I don't know. And I know that there are some nonprofit groups who are raising money to give kids devices that don't have.
Right. So maybe we should try and reach out to the organizations and see where there's a need or a way of connecting to families who might have a need, so that we can say, okay, it shouldn't all just rely on nonprofit organizations. If there's a need that the DOE or, the government should be providing, or city council members should be providing, then let us, advocate on your behalf in that way.
I agree.
With us sending a letter about Wi-Fi being free and accessible to all, did anything come of that? Do you know?
I haven't heard.
That letter was mailed for NYCHA. Yes. Unfortunately, one of the is that Echo Mini? Okay, give me one second.
Girl.
Is there still an echo? Okay. Yeah, there is. Okay. Y'all go ahead. I'll come back. I gotta get rid of this echo.
I think, well, can I chime in again? I think, yeah, we're going to be, I want to be fair when it comes to those households that may not have internet service, or that may have a guardian or an elder as the child's guardian or what have you. I'm going to be fair when it comes to that.
Kinsey, what you're saying is exactly what the district's office criticism was about the NYCHA letter, because that was the assumption that was only NYCHA students and residents that don't have access to internet and Wi-Fi. But that was the letter that went out. For the most part, the public service agencies, Verizon, Optimum, Spectrum, they did and they still do provide free internet connection and free Wi-Fi for NYCHA residents. But as you're saying, like the need extends beyond just NYCHA. There are people in regular private housing that needs these services. They don't have it. So we totally understand. That's definitely something that needs to be addressed. But the question is how to do it. And this echo is driving me mad.
It's true. Now, is this something where that this should be something that the council person gets involved with, and make sure that students within their district have everything that they need so that they can get the proper education or continuing education where they left off prior to COVID?
I mean, unless the city comes up with its own Wi-Fi program, it's going to be up to the individual public service agencies that actually serve those areas of need. Optimum needs to just be like, all right, you know what? You don't have to be an Optimum customer to jump on our free Wi-Fi. Same with Spectrum, same with Verizon, same with RCA.
You're basically
all
talking about,
the other things. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, what we're basically talking about is universal broadband access, which we don't have.
Yeah. So it's unfortunately Wi-Fi is not like electricity. People just can't go outside and tap the pole. So,
I'd be tapping. You could tap Brooklyn Children's Museum Wi-Fi.
but you have to be on that same block though. So this is
Yeah.
it's definitely something that the public service agencies will have to actually step in and fill the void for. And they're going to be all asking the same thing. What's their incentive?
Right.
The
Right.
tax reform of 2017 didn't give enough, but that's going to be their thing. So, Ms. Lindsay, we do understand your point. Echo's driving me mad. I've closed everything. I don't know where it's coming from.
Right. So now, back to my point in terms of being fair to those families in regard to, okay, if they do have Wi-Fi, they need to at least be getting the packets home. They need to get in packets if they don't have Wi-Fi. They should not just be sitting there with nothing because they don't have Wi-Fi. And even the homes that may have it, and we have to take into consideration that is not a one size fit all. They're not all under 30 or under 40. And it's unfair to put a certain amount of pressure on them as well. So if they could improvise, I'm not going to criticize them if solution for them.
I agree. One going back to the Wi-Fi, one way I think that they could look into expanding Wi-Fi is to expand the number of Link NYC kiosks. That could be a way to do it as well. But it sounds like we kind of need to get a little bit more, or maybe we need to reach out to kind of see if people are having trouble. We do know that some people are having issues with their access to Wi-Fi as well as access to actual devices. So I do think that the packets that you're mentioning could be helpful for people who don't have that access. So maybe we should reach out to see if we might be able to encourage them to provide those things, or see if they are actually doing that. Because I think Marva mentioned kids in some instances are receiving packets, but it might
At
not
the
be.
at the start of the pause, I know that Apple had donated like 100,000 iPads and stuff. Were those all distributed? I know that there was an issue with students actually claiming them. Were they distributed? That is the question. There are resources out there. Maybe it's just an issue of getting the information to the people in greatest need. Everything is pretty much all digital right now. Maybe that's why they don't know. But there are resources. So I guess maybe the committee can discuss how best to disseminate the information.
Do we need to send letters to homes? Is DOE sending letters to homes? I feel like you're saying, yeah, it's all digital. So if they don't know how to access or get the device, that's problematic as well.
Yeah, that would be up to the individual school parent coordinators. I do know that Ms. Wedderburn had a list at one point in time. I don't know if that list is still current. I really need to figure out what this is.
I think it's the Board of Education. If you have the choice between remote and in class or in school, it should be the option. When they started talking about these devices, it should have been a choice. Well, we don't know what if you have Wi-Fi, certain things in your home, but you have an option of the device or the assignment packets, which one would be more convenient for you. They never had the option of getting, that's what's bothering me, that they never had the option of getting a homework packet or an assignment packet when COVID first started.
Well, Ms.
Everything
Kinsey,
just went to
my
remote.
was getting the packet is that if the parents and the students don't understand what's in the packet, they still need online services and remote learning to engage in their lessons.
Right. That's what I
That
was
is,
thinking. Who's going to
and
teach?
yeah, all of my friends, literally every single one of my friends, is a current DOE teacher, and they all have the exact same criticism that they are not themselves given the tools and resources to navigate this remote learning thing. So instead of just contemplating, hey, maybe it's just a Wi-Fi thing or an internet thing, maybe we need to get some teachers on board in these discussions and start understanding what their actual needs are, because ultimately they're the ones that's going to be blamed for, the gigantic learning curve and the disparity of what, many students are going to experience when testing does resume in 2021 or 2022. So we need to think broader than it's just a resource issue. For some people, it is a resource issue. For others, it's a combination of different things. We have to think broad and just not be one issue minded. This is not something that's going to just continue in the next 2 months. So we really do need to consider being more proactive and not just isolate one area.
True. I mean, I think we've gone far beyond. I think we're too um, tech dependent. I mean, it was a time we didn't have computers and we just used a book. What happened to the book? That explains the work. So we're in a crisis like this, we have to refer back to what we used to do. I don't think students should be sitting home because they don't have a device and that's a wrap. Now they're not learning. So the same books that they would have had in the classroom, why aren't those books being sent home with the assignment? And along with a teacher's phone number if they should need have questions or the parents should have any questions.
Okay, so
I
as
think
I
what
said,
you're
all of my friends are teachers, and they actually really do spend a lot of their time on the phone with their students.
I text my son's teacher every day, so
Their
I
personal
think
information is out there, so I don't
right.
think that's it.
I think what we're seeing is that what this situation has shown is the discrepancy in quality of education, right? What we're talking about is very school specific, because my son's in a public school here, my daughter is in an independent school, but my son, I think, is in one of the better public schools, and they were prepared. Like I said, he was coming home with a book bag full of stuff every single day, and it's not just what he's learning on a laptop. He has actual books, he has printouts, he has packets. But if another school is shitty and didn't prepare, or and the teacher won't give out a cell phone number, or they're not tech savvy, that's very specific to individual schools. And I think it's showing like the diversity and quality of education in this city and across the nation, right? They're saying like this pandemic is showing how poorly schools are doing for the students. And I don't necessarily, and the solution, I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, everyone should go home with a packet. Everyone should have an electronic device, right? Like they were offering us a device, but I'm like, we have 3 laptops here. We don't need a device. Why would we take it from a kid who doesn't need it or who needs it, right? So I think if, parents and the schools have to be communicating, and if they're not, to let them know like what resources are available to them. I think we need to like figure out how we can bridge this communication divide, because it's showing some kids are getting good education, some are getting decent education, some are getting bad educations. And I don't know that it's as simple as sending home a packet, because if a grandma doesn't know how to do this math, what good is a packet going to do? Because somebody still has to teach the child how to do that math. And so there has to be some kind of learning in place with, right, a certified teacher or something. And so that's why they should have the devices so that they can learn from their teachers, whether it's at home or at school or at one of these Learning Bridges sites.
So
Yeah, when I didn't know the math, I had to look in the book.
Ms. Neal, you had brought up an interesting um, an aspect that was missing from what we were talking about before, which is the teachers' voices. And it does seem like they would probably be the best and easiest people to connect with, who would have the best information about what's missing, and the issues that they're having, connecting with students or connecting with parents. Do you have any connections with teachers within CD8 who might be able to talk to us about what they need?
I can try to
Talking to
get
me.
some. Like the teachers that I know, they range from kindergarten all the way through high school. They usually, for the most part, they're on the periphery of CB8 and board 2, board 3, board 6, board 16. But I will definitely reach out to them. It is not a problem. I honestly don't think that it's going to be much of a difference, where their school is located, so long as it's a DOE school. And that I can tell you that a lot of the issues are like the DOE brass is they change the platforms all the time. The teachers are like, this one works, and then the DOE changes it to something that doesn't work necessarily. So there are a lot of variables that needs to be considered. Where is this echo coming from?
One of my son's teachers or the administrator just texted me like literally right while I'm sitting here. So I can ask like, I'm on the community board. Is there any concerns that you have about, what resources or supplies you need as the teacher and, the needs of your students? Because I know sometimes there's like 8 kids on Zoom and then other days there's only 3 or 4. So some kids are not logging in. They were there, they did have devices, and why aren't they coming to even virtual school if that's available? So I can ask the teachers at New Bridges.
Okay.
I think one of the easiest ways would be for me to reach out to Sharon and even Quasi, because I know they work on a list together, just to get a list of the parent coordinators and the PCA presidents. They would have the direct contact information for teachers in the schools. They would be able to reach out broadly to see which teachers would be interested in meeting with us in a coming month, and to just just emailing us the issues that they're having. In the meantime, if the committee wants to discuss some questions for a very quick 2 minutes or less survey, that would be ideal. We can send it to the parent coordinators and the PCA presidents. That way, we don't have to rely on someone actually remembering to come and log into a meeting when teachers are already working well beyond their normal education day. So if you guys want to spend the next couple minutes crafting some very very simple questions, but that hammer home the point of what you're trying to accomplish, I do not have a problem contacting Sharon and Quasi tomorrow and seeing if they have any type of updated list, or even if the list is outdated, we still do have a list of all the schools. We can email it to them or mail it to them and just get something going, for the January meeting or the February meeting, depending on when you want to meet next.
Okay. I think one thing we want to know is what is the biggest challenge that they're having right now, or that they've seen with their students, I think is one question we have.
I had the same question, Nora. That was the question I was going to ask.
Do they feel they need to better do their job? Like, is there anything that they need? Like tangible items, right? I think.
Okay, Ms. Kinsey, you were mentioning stuff about like the package and the older parents. If you could formulate all the many different intricacies of that particular issue into a solid question, that would be really, really helpful for right now because it is a very important issue and it's definitely one that needs to be addressed and ameliorated in some way.
Yeah, would assignment packages be more convenient for those who don't have internet service? Would assignment packages be more convenient for those who have older caregivers or grandparents that may be their guardians, or is it possible for students to have both? Is it an option? That's all I was. Or were books provided? What I want to know too, prior to COVID and everything that happened surrounding it, I heard a lot about the students receiving devices, but in receiving devices, I know Ms. Henry said that her children's school was pretty much on top of it. But how many schools actually send home books as well? Being provided to those that have, or are they just jumping on remotely and just listening to lectures from the teachers?
I don't necessarily think books are used that much. I don't know. I mean, my kids are young, kindergarten and first grade. So I think, oh, I do know a high schooler. But I think they photocopy a lot and make packets, so maybe they're copying it from some book or they're printing worksheets and they're getting,
Right.
stapling them together. So they're using those. So it's not necessarily books in the traditional sense of like what we had when we were children, but I don't feel like it's many books these days.
Right. The photocopy is good as long as it's getting photocopied from the book. Right.
Also, I do know that charters operate a little differently from the DOE in terms of books and photocopies. During my experience with the DOE, I can honestly say that aside from the English books, we didn't have books. There wasn't a math book, there wasn't a history book, there wasn't a science book. It was all photocopies. That's definitely something that we can bring up. Do you think a book would help you?
Say, I was also at some meetings and there's like classes that parents can take so that they can learn math, so it's like, you need to help your child with this assignment, come take this class. I forgot about that. So these are things, I mean, if you're not in the meeting, you're not going to know about that. But these are things that the DOE is providing, like even still. Although
you mean the new math?
Right, like new math. My nephew is 15, and so when he was like 8 and 10, and I was like, "What is this? Just do multiplication. Why are we making boxes and all this?" Yeah, like, so teaching parents the new math and stuff like that. They do provide those kind of classes, but again, if you're not aware and you're not at those meetings to know about them, is it really advertised? I don't know. But I think in respect to, I don't know if you want to say non-traditional parents or non-tech savvy parents, like if we're thinking of a survey, like what complaints have you heard from non-traditional parents that might be helpful for you to assist them in assisting their children in learning or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to think about some of the households where you had parents, unfortunately, that really wasn't a. I can only imagine what's going on in those households. If the gadget isn't working, hey, no big deal. I mean, it's just really a mess when you really think about it. It's a mess because you do have those students that didn't have the support in the home from the get-go. And I wonder what's going on with them. At least they had school as a refuge. You know what I mean? And even
people who are not English speaking.
Yeah.
That's actually another very significant concern. That's something that has been communicated to the district office. the last couple of months prior to the summer break. There are teachers that they know that their students are in unsafe environments, but at this point in time, they have no way of contacting authorities to prove it. Like, first of all, we're assuming that every teacher is tech savvy. That's number one. Every teacher is not tech savvy. Just like there are parents that can't navigate this remote learning thing, there are teachers that are struggling as well. And there's just so many different intersections and variables. At this point, we can't even say that it's a race thing or an economics thing or a socioeconomic thing bordering race. It's just, there's just so many different variables that cross every realm of existence. So we really do need to hunker down and think of, as you can see, education is very important to me. That. And so it goes driving me nuts.
So I think we
all have to mute ourselves while we're not talking, because you're probably hearing your voice echoing through everybody else's computer.
Mr. Grossa, that is a very good point about the teaching aids and manipulatives for younger students. With remote learning, we have to rely on parents to have that. Now, the question becomes, how many parents actually know what a manipulative actually is? So,
So I think we have a few questions for the survey. Do we have that, Ms. Neal?
yes, I'm actually compiling all the questions right now. So in reverse order, I have this question from Laurel DeGrossa about teaching aids and manipulatives for younger students. Younger students are versus high school students unable to understand assignments on iPads like graphs and essays. That is exactly right. In addition to that, just basic math like addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, for the most part, when I was teaching, I used money because it was just easier. Another question we have is complaints from non-traditional parents that of what they need to assist them in their not only learning but assisting their students. Books, are they provided, or is everything just digital? What about photocopying? Assignment packages, are they even effective, and if so, can they be used more often? Were workbooks provided prior to COVID? Can we go back to that if they were effective? What tangible items, if any, would be beneficial for you right now that could assist in education delivery? And what is the biggest challenge that you are facing or experiencing right now as an educator? Those are the questions that I have attained from the last 10 minutes of conversation.
That's what I have too. That's accurate.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And please be advised that before I even send this out to the parent coordinators and the PTA presidents, I will send it out to the Google group just for your review. And you all can just please respond to the email and let me know what you would like to add, change, or whatever. But I say under 2 minutes to complete, because in my experience with CB8 sending out these surveys, people can be very lazy with their responses and even their thought process in trying to respond. So the shorter, the better. And if we can just keep the questions as closely related to what we believe their experience to be, that would be ideal to get some tangible information that we can utilize for either letter crafting or discussions with the Department of Education and charter schools, or what have you. But Ms. Kinsey does bring home, and everyone else, a valid point of we can't allow our these kids to be left behind. Unfortunately, Ms. Henry, not every parent is like you.
Very true. Okay, so thank you so much, Ms. Neal. It's really, really appreciated. I think this will really help us get to next steps as to how we could really be try to help the students in CDA or however we can be helpful. So thank you so much for offering to do this.
Miss Jordan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Listen.
Miss Jordan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, everything was okay.
Okay, Mr. Grossa, did you have anything you wanted to add?
She done. She ain't done.
Miss Kinsey, anything to add?
Yes, I want to thank you. I appreciate your input. And if any kind of information or anything that the parent coordinator sends over or BOE in reference to the students within our district, I don't mind collecting it or what have you and disseminating.
I will definitely send it out. Sharon Wedderburn actually does a very good job of keeping us abreast of everything that the DOE and the UFT offers. So we send it out if it's not redundant and it is something new. We definitely do send it out. As I said, I sent earlier today the UFT offerings for enrichment services. Is definitely a time when like people that know people with children kind of get on them about their kids' education. Not that you guys need to be overseers or anything, but you kind of need to be overseers.
I just want to ask, is there a specific school, Ms. Kinsey, that you have in mind that's maybe not doing what they should be doing, like that maybe we can, contact directly and say, this is a problem in your school, this is what we're hearing, or go to the CEC and say, we're hearing that this school is having a problem? Because if we don't know specific situations, then, it's all very broad, right? So is there a specific situation that you know of that maybe we can really advocate for specifically?
Well, different people with no two same. It's not one size fit all. And in terms of schools, like I said, my son is a college graduate, but I do know individuals with younger children that's in school. And prior to COVID, I did pay close attention to the school. I think it's 167, whatever it is, on the corner of Schenectady and Eastern Parkway. But throughout my travels, what I'm saying, sometimes people start talking about their different issues, so that I'm going to be out and about, like I was explaining to Julia. If it's any kind of paperwork she want to share to me, I would gladly pick it up and have it with me and disseminate it to the different residents that have school age kids that may be having these challenges or difficulties dealing with the devices or other challenges that has been presented since COVID. Because we want to bridge the gap, as you said earlier. And now I get on meetings because there's other complaints or similar complaints. So we at the board may have information they may not have on that meeting, and then I could share it. I mean, it's really about our community and the future of our community. If we have a bunch of kids that didn't learn nothing, 2 years went by, they missed out on an important part of their life. That's our community and that's our future. So we all have to take part in doing something to make sure that they stay on track.
Agreed.
Okay, if nobody else has anything to add, I think that we are ready to adjourn. Has anything? Okay, I guess we can adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Nora.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for indulging me and my talkativeness. I just love education.
Me too. Me too. I love it too.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
All right. Bye
Have a
bye.
good evening.
safe. That